Anyone had to wait a very long time for something? Oh, yeah, there's quite a lot of hands going up there. Does anyone feel able to share one of those things? Okay, Kim, do you want to come up and do that? Your wedding, interrupted by COVID and everything else. Yep, so a lot of waiting there. Anyone else had to... Do you want to say? Do you want to? Are you sure?
I've been waiting now for nearly 2 years for a heart and a kidney, and the waiting's getting a bit tedious. So I'd like lots of prayer now.
That's really brave, Mandy. Thank you. Come on, Olivia. What have you had to wait for?
My air up.
Your what?
Air up.
Air up. What's that?
Basically, it's a bottle but with a pod.
It's a bottle and it has water in it. Clearly, I am too old to understand the concept of an air up. What have you have to wait for?
Air up, it mainly means like if people like kids, they don't like ordinary water, so they just so adults buy it for them so they can drink water more ordinary.
Clearly, I'm completely out of touch. I just thought you had problems getting kids to eat greens. I didn't realise there was problems getting kids to drink water. Very serious issue. Anyone else, something that they've had to wait for?
I think a lot of you know that when I was very, very young, I had a baby which I had adopted, and 24 years later she found me. I waited 24 years, Chris, but I've had wonderful times since.
Wow. Okay, getting brave. People are...
Being pregnant and waiting for your baby to come out.
Yeah, I have to say, I've witnessed it, but not experienced it. Yeah, Beth.
Autism diagnosis for my son. I tried to get it when he was in year 6 and he didn't get it till year 9.
Taking all that time.
Year 10.
And it makes such a difference. Whoa. Yeah. Wow. I'm kind of some... Well, I guess when you're waiting for something, it always feels like a bit of a big deal. And today we're thinking about two people who waited a very, very long time. They're both old, they're at the end of their lives, Simeon and Anna. Anna was 84. We're not told how old Simeon was, but he was really, really old. And they were waiting to see God's Messiah. They were longing to see God's Messiah. And one day, a couple brought a young baby into the temple, and something happened. They recognized in that baby someone really, really special. And God revealed to Simeon that he would one day see God's Messiah. And when that baby, that was Jesus, was brought in, he realized that that was the person he was waiting for. The thing I like about Anna and Simeon is that they are both ordinary people. Anyone here feel particularly extraordinary? Most of us, I think, feel kind of very ordinary. We live very ordinary lives, and they would have lived long, ordinary lives. They were very ordinary, but they were also extraordinary. Something in them kind of made them long for God to reveal his purposes to them. And we thought about things that we wait for. They spent all their lives waiting to see this happen. And it's a bit like they are at the end of one era and they're waiting for the beginning of another era. It's like they're the end of the Old Testament. They're almost like the last Old Testament prophets, if you like. The word for a prophet in the Old Testament was a seer, someone who saw what God was going to do. And they were looking for what God was going to do. They were patiently waiting. And then eventually Jesus comes. And when he comes... they recognize the significance of him, and it's the beginning of a new era that Jesus is going to usher in. I think I've got a picture of Simeon somewhere. Thank you very much, Brian. That's brilliant. It's a very old painting by Rembrandt. I just love that image of old and young together. It's the last painting that Rembrandt ever painted before he died. He was an old man, and he paints this old man holding the baby that is Jesus. And when he holds that baby and he recognizes who that baby is, he speaks over him. And these are the words he speaks over him. Could we have the next slide, Brian? Sovereign Lord, as you've promised, you can now dismiss your servant in peace. After all that waiting, he can finally stop. For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you prepared in the sight of all people, a light for your revelation to the Gentiles and for the glory of your people, Israel. Does anyone know what Jesus actually means? What the name Jesus means? Anyone going to help me? A bit of theology, a bit of God. It means God saves. He's been waiting to see God's salvation, and a baby with the name God saves is brought into the temple, and he recognizes the significance of that. Kind of the prophet, the seer, sees what God's doing in this tiny baby. And this term we've been thinking about the beginning of John's gospel, and one of the themes in it is that people don't always recognize what God's doing. Here's someone who recognizes what God is doing. And that is just amazing. And more than that, he realizes the significance of this baby. Could we have the next slide? In the prologue of John, it says that the true light that gives light to every man was coming into the world. And he sees this baby and realizes it's a light for God's revelation to the Gentiles. And kind of one of the names for this service today is Candlemas. Could I have the next slide? Thanks. It reminds us about Jesus being the light of the world. So when you go home today, we're going to give you a candle to take home to light, to remind you that Jesus is the light of the world. So Simeon tells us who this light is and why he's come. He's come to bring God's salvation. And I love the way that God brings everything together. The new and the Old Testament and the new, young and old, Simeon and Jesus. And today we want to celebrate that. And we want to bring the young and the old together. That's what family service at St. Matt's is about. So kind of we'd like to do something that's a bit different today. I would love to get the younger members of St. Matt's talking to the older members of St. Matt's just for a few minutes. Now this is a bit tricky. How does one define who is younger and who is older? And I know that the moment I do that, I am going to be in serious trouble. So I am choosing a number in a fairly arbitrary way. And I am choosing, and I'm putting myself in the older section, okay? So this is a bit of a brave thing. Hands up if you are over 55. Okay, quite a few actually, over 55s. Keep those hands, right, hands up, and this is going to be you guys down here. Hands up if you're under 18. Oh, okay. Any more under 18s? Some of you must be very old. Okay. Right, what I want you to do is, under 18s, hands down. Over 55s, hands up again. Right, if you're under 18, can you look for someone with their hands up? Can you go to someone that's got their hands up? And can you ask them a question? Could you ask them to tell you something that they did when they were young that people don't do anymore? There's a challenge for you. Think of something that you did when you were young. I can see some hands have gone down over there. Hands back up, guys. Come on. No ducking out of it. No ducking. Just ask there. I'll tell you something from here. When I was small, we only had 2 TV channels. And they were both on black and white on my TV. Come on, it's something that you did when you were young that people don't do anymore. Over 55s, brilliant. Just going to give them a moment to do that. We got anyone looking for someone to talk to? Richard's got his hand bravely up down here. Anyone want to have a chat to someone? And I've got another question. While you're still with them, another question. Ask them what they long to see happen now. What would they like to see happen now? And you might want to share what you'd like to see happen. We're ready. Pardon? I think we need, Hannah's just saying we need some answers. And can someone come and tell me what they've learned? Something that they've found out that someone did in the past that people don't do now. Any lessons learned? What's that? No to all. Go on. What have you learned?
She did things that she wouldn't get away with.
Things that you wouldn't get away with now. People that were old and naughty when they were young. Surely not. That's cool. Anything else? What have you learned?
People would go miles and miles away.
Wow, they walk miles and miles. Yeah, cool. Go on.
That they used to have to dial numbers instead of doing it like we do now.
They had to use a phone that was plugged in, and they had to dial numbers on the phone rather than carrying it around in their pockets. That's a good one. Anything else that's different from when people were younger? There's not a lot of cooperation going on there. Go on, do you want to say for her?
They found out that the teacher was very strict and had extremely long fingernails.
The teacher was strict and had long fingernails. Would you like to hear what my teacher used to do when I was young? We used to call him Blakey because he had Blakeys on his heels. Anyone know what Blakeys are? There you go. Metal things banged into your heel. And you'd hear him coming, click, click, click on the path. The funniest thing that ever happened was when he went up the slope, lost his footing, and basically ran on the spot before falling over. But Blakey's party trick, and I'm sure this doesn't happen in your classrooms, was if you were talking and he was writing on the blackboard, whatever he was holding, he would turn around and throw it at you, which was fine when it was the chalk. It wasn't so great when it was the blackboard rubber and it was made out of wood. You just had to learn. So when I was young, we learnt to duck. Okay, let's bring it back. One of the amazing things about this story and why we just did that is it's actually about how God uses the young and the old, how God brings everyone together to work together. And we had a bit of an example of that in our worship this morning. If you were here, you would have seen this, but this is for the benefit of those of you that are online. We had a little bit of cooperation going, completely unplanned this morning. It was only the youngsters doing it. Cool. Brilliant. So Simon realizes that Jesus has come to bring light into our dark world. And our world is still a dark place. Jesus still wants to bring that light into the world. Go to the next slide. He said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me won't walk in darkness, but they'll have the light of life. And Jesus wants us to be people that reflect his light. This is what he said to his followers when he grew up. can we have that final slide? Thank you. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people place a light and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they can... We're meant to be people who reflect Jesus, his light. Jesus came into the world as a child, the light of the world. And he wants us to share that light with others. So when you go today, I'm going to blow that out before I burn myself. We'll be giving you a light to light at home, and to use as a focus to think about what it means for you to be the light of the world today. Amen. Julia's going to lead us in our prayers.
Which one's on? Both on. Shall we pray? Father, this morning we're going to be thinking of our families. And we thank you for all our family, whether it be a large family or a small family, from the very oldest in our family